Hello friends, in last lecture we covered the three basic topics from your unit number 1. That is, first one is your evolution of electronics. Then what is the impact of electronics on industry and in society, and which are the different active and passive components. Now in this lecture we will cover the next topics, that is semiconductor physics and the p-n junction diode. Now the learning outcomes. After studying this topic, students will be able to understand the concepts of the semiconductor physics and the working principle and the VI characteristics of p-n junction diode. Now let's start with the semiconductor physics. Now we will study we will start our semiconductor physics with the review of the atomic structure. Now picture shows the Bohr's model of the atomic theory. According to Bohr's model, we will define what is meant by atom, then what is proton, what is electron, then what is nucleus, then what is atomic number, and what is weight. Now let's start with our first term, that is atom. Now what is atom? Atom is nothing but the smallest particle of an element which is made up of the three fundamental particles. Now atom is basically made up of three fundamental particles, that is neutron, proton and electron. What is proton? Proton is nothing but the positively charged ion. What is electron? Electron is nothing but the negatively charged ion. And what is neutron? Neutron is uncharged, or it is also called as an electrically neutral. As we know, the mass of neutron and proton is same, but the mass of electron is very light. And all the protons and neutrons are bound together at the center of the atom. Now if you see the picture, all the neutrons and protons are bound at the center, and this center is nothing but what? The nucleus. As the protons exist in the nucleus, so nucleus will behave as an positively charged, and electrons are moving around the nucleus. If you see the negatively charged particle, or the electrons are moving around the center or around the nucleus, similar to the revolution of the planet around the sun. As electrons are negatively charged and the nucleus is positively charged, so there will be force of attraction between them. In an atom, the number of protons and the number of electrons will always same, so the atom is electrically neutral. Now what is atomic number? The number of protons in an atom is nothing but what? Atomic number. Means the number of positively charged ion in an atom is nothing but what? Atomic number. And what is meant by atomic weight? The total number of protons and neutrons in the nucleus of an atom is nothing but what? The atomic weight. And according to the classical Bohr's model, the revolving electrons are always arranged in the different orbits or the shell at the fixed distance from the nucleus, and each shell contains the maximum number of electrons given by the equation, that is 2n square, where n is nothing but what? The number of shell. Now in this picture, total number of two shells are there, shell 1 and shell 2. Now if you see, in shell 1 total number of 2 electrons. Why? Because of that equation, that is 2n square, where n is equals to 1. Now here n equals to 1 means 2 into 1 square, that is equals to 2. That's why total number of 2 electrons are present in the first shell. Similarly for the second shell. Now let's see the atomic structure of silicon and germanium. Now first of all, silicon. As we know, the atomic number of the silicon is 14. So total number of 14 protons and 14 neutrons are in the nucleus. Now we will decide how many electrons will be in each orbit. Now if you see the picture, total number of 3 orbits are there. Then total number of 2 electrons in first orbit, according to the equation, that is 2n square. As this is orbit number 1 or shell number 1, so 2 into 1 square, that is equals to 2 electrons. Similarly, if you see the second orbit or second shell of the silicon atom, total number of 8 electrons are there. According to again same equation, that is 2n square, that is 2 into 2 square, 2 into 4, that is equals to 8 electrons. Now total number of electrons are in shell number 1 and shell number 2 are equals to 8 plus 2, that is equals to 10. As we know, the atomic number of the silicon is 14, so 14 minus 10, that is equals to 4 electrons, means 4 electrons are remaining. So the third orbit can accommodate remaining 4 electrons. So there are total number of 4 electrons in the third orbit of the silicon atom. Similarly, if you see the atomic structure of the germanium, then there are total number of 32 protons and 32 neutrons in the nucleus of the germanium. So total number of 32 electrons revolve around the nucleus. Now if you see the first orbit, in first orbit total number of 2 electrons. Similarly, orbit 2 contains total number of 8 electrons. Similarly, orbit 3 contains total number of 18 electrons, means 18 plus 8 plus 2, there are total number of 28 electrons, and remaining 4 electrons are in orbit number 4. Now this is nothing but what? The atomic structure of silicon and germanium. There are total number of 14 protons and neutrons around the in the nucleus of the silicon. Similarly, there are total number of 32 protons and 32 neutrons of the germanium at the nucleus. Now let's see the energy band diagram. Now picture shows the energy band diagram. Now basically this energy band diagram consists of two bands. First one is your conduction band, second one is your valence band, and the gap between your conduction band and valence band is nothing but what? Forbidden gap. Now what is conduction band? Conduction band possesses the free electrons, means free electrons are present in the conduction band. What is valence band? Valence band possesses the valence electrons, means valence electrons are present in the valence band, and the gap between the conduction band and valence band is nothing but what? The forbidden gap. And the energy gap, that is Eg, is always measured in the unit of electron volt, that is eV. Now let's classify the different types of materials based on the energy band diagram. Now here there are basically total number of 3 materials. First one is insulator, second one is conductor, and third one is semiconductor. Now let's see first insulator. Now first picture shows the insulator. Now what is insulator? Insulator is the type of material which is not good conductor of electricity. Means insulators are not good conductor of electricity. Now if you see the energy band diagram of insulator, then you will observe one effect, that is the gap, the forbidden gap or the energy gap between the conduction band and valence band is very wide. And for insulator it is very high, about which is equals to 7 electron volt. So the insulator are those material which are bad conductor of electricity. If we take example of your insulator, then wood, mica, then paper, then glass, these are the different examples of the insulators. Now if you see the third picture indicates the energy band diagram for the conductors. Now what is conductor? Conductors are those material which are good conductor of electricity. Now if you see the energy band diagram for the conductors, then you will observe the energy gap or the forbidden gap between the valence band and conduction band which is equals to 0. Means in short, both the bands, that is conduction band and valence band, overlaps with each other. Means the energy gap or the forbidden gap for the conductors which is equals to what? 0. Due to this, the conductors are good conductor of the electricity. the copper, aluminum, silver, these are the examples of the conductors. And if you see the second picture, now what is semiconductor? Now semiconductor is the material which is good conductor of electricity but less than the conductor but greater than that of the insulator. Means, and if you see the energy band diagram for the semiconductor, then you will observe there is gap between the gap, that is forbidden gap or energy gap between valence band and conduction band, but it is less than insulator but it is greater than that of your conductor, and which is nearly equals to what, 1 electron volt. The silicon and germanium are the best example of the semiconductor devices, and our electronics engineering deals with the semiconductor devices, that is silicon and germanium. Now let's see which are the different types of semiconductors. Now picture shows the classification of the semiconductors. Now semiconductors are basically classified into two categories, that is intrinsic semiconductor and extrinsic semiconductor. And your extrinsic semiconductors are again divided into two types, that is N-type semiconductor and P-type semiconductor. Now what is intrinsic semiconductor? An intrinsic type of semiconductor material is made to be very pure chemically, and it is made up of only a single type of element, means they are present in their purest form. Germanium and silicon are the most common type of intrinsic semiconductor element. They have 4 valence electron, that is tetravalent. They are bound to the atom by covalent bond at absolute zero temperature. When the temperature rises, then due to the collision, few electrons are unbounded and become free to move through the lattice, thus the creating an absence in the in its original position. It will be the hole, and these free electrons and holes contributes the conduction of the electricity in the semiconductor. The negative and positive charge carriers are equal in number. What is extrinsic semiconductor? The conductivity of the semiconductor can be greatly improved by introducing the small number of suitable replacement atoms. It's called as an impurities. The process of impurities, the process of adding the impurities to the atom to the pure semiconductor is nothing but what? The doping. Means we can obtain our extrinsic semiconductor from intrinsic semiconductor by adding some impurities to the intrinsic semiconductor. So the extrinsic semiconductors are further classified into N-type semiconductor material and P-type semiconductor material. Now what is N-type semiconductor material? When a pure semiconductor, that is silicon or germanium, is doped by the pentavalent impurities, then the 4 electrons out of 5 valence electrons bound with the 4 electrons of the germanium and silicon. As we know, the silicon and germanium have total number of 4 valence electrons. If we add the pentavalent impurity, then what will happen? The four electrons from this pentavalent impurity gets bonded with the 4 electrons, valence electrons of the silicon or germanium, and the 5th electron of the dopant is said to be free. Thus, the impurity of the atom donates a free electron for the conduction in the lattice, and this is called as an donor. Now, if you see the picture, in picture, the donor contributes the free electrons. Now, total number of 4 electrons of the pentavalent impurity and the silicon are gets combined with each other, and one atom is free to move, and that is nothing but what? Donor impurity contributes the free electrons. Since the number of free electrons increases by the addition of an impurity, so the negative charge carriers increases. So this is called as an N-type semiconductor material, and there will be majority of what? Electrons in n-type semiconductor materials. Now what is p-type semiconductor material? When a pure semiconductor material is doped with the trivalent impurity, then the 3 valence electrons of the impurity bonds with the 3 of the 4 valence electron of the semiconductor. It will be either silicon or germanium. Now this leaves an absence of electron in the impurity, and these impurity atoms which are ready to accept the bonded electrons are called as an acceptor. With the increase in number of impurities, the holes, that is positive charge carriers, will increase. So this type of semiconductor material is called as an p-type semiconductor material. So what is our conclusion? When we add the impurities, when we add the pentavalent impurities to the pure semiconductor, then we will obtain the n-type semiconductor material. Similarly, when we add the trivalent impurities to the pure semiconductor or intrinsic semiconductor material, then we will get the p-type semiconductor material. Now let's start with the first type of diode, that is p-n junction diode. Now first picture shows the construction and the symbolic representation of the p-n junction diode. As we know, there are basically two types of extrinsic semiconductor materials. First one is p-type semiconductor material and second one is n-type semiconductor material. Now when we combine the p-type semiconductor material and n-type semiconductor material with the special type of fabrication, then it will form the p-n junction. As we know, in p-type semiconductor material there is majority of holes, that is positively charged ion, and minority of electrons, that is negatively charged ion. So the first electrode or first terminal of p-n junction diode, that is anode, is positive. Similarly, in n-type semiconductor material there is majority of electrons, that is negatively charged ion, and minority of holes, that is positively charged ion. So the second electrode of the p-n junction diode, that is cathode, is negative. And the second picture shows the symbolic representation of the p-n junction diode. Now let's see the formation of the depletion region. As we know, in n region there are number of donor atoms. So the holes recombines with the free electrons of the donor atoms. Thus, due to the additional positively charged holes, these donor atoms becomes positive immobile ions near the n region. Similarly, in p region there are number of acceptor atoms, and the free electrons recombine with the holes of the acceptor atoms. Thus, due to additional negative charge free electrons, these acceptor atoms becomes the negative immobile ions just near the junction p region. As more holes diffuse on n side, the large positive charge accumulates near the junction on n side, and this positive charge repels the positively charged holes and the diffusion of holes stops. Similarly, the large negative charge accumulates near the junction on the p side, and this negative charge repels the negative charge electrons and the diffusion of the electrons stops. Thus, there exists a wall near the junction with negative immobile ions on p side and positive immobile ion on n side. There are no charge carriers in this region, so this region is depleted of the charge carriers, hence this is called as an depletion region. Now let's see the forward biasing and the forward characteristics of the p-n junction diode. First of all, let's see what is the difference between the unbiased condition and the biased condition. If you take the example of the p-n junction diode, if you are not applied any external power source to the p-n junction diode, then your diode will be in unbiased condition. and if you suppose apply some external power source to the p-n junction diode, then your diode will be in biasing condition, and your biasing conditions are again differentiate in between two types. First one is your forward biasing and second one is your reverse biasing. Now let's see forward biasing. Now if you see, the first picture indicates the forward biasing of the p-n junction diode. Now here the p-type semiconductor material is connected with the positive terminal of battery supply, and n-type semiconductor material is connected with negative terminal of the battery supply. In other words, we can say that anode is connected with the positive terminal of battery and cathode is connected with the negative terminal of battery. Now when you increase the battery voltage, then what will happen? The negative immobile ions and the positive immobile ions which are present at the junction, that is nothing but what? Depletion region. Now when you increase the battery voltage, then what will happen? The negative immobile ions which are present at the junctions on p side will attract towards the positive terminal of battery. Similarly, the positive immobile ions which are present at the junction on n side will attract towards the negative terminal of the battery. Now when further increase in your applied voltage, more number of negative charged ions from p side will attract towards the positive terminal of battery, and more number of positive immobile ions from the n side will attract towards the negative terminal of battery. Now further increase in your applied voltage, the width of depletion region will goes on decreasing. Then at one point what will happen? The width of depletion region will be exactly 0. Now when width of depletion region will be exactly 0, this is nothing but what? The barrier potential is equals to what? 0. If you are using silicon type of diode, then the minimum voltage across the diode or the barrier potential for the silicon diode, which is equals to 0.6 volt to 0.7 volt, means when the voltage across the diode is in between 0.6 volt to 0.6 volt, then the width of depletion region will be exactly equals to 0, or barrier potential will be exactly equals to 0. Then what will happen? The the holes from the p type semiconductor material will move towards the n type semiconductor material. Similarly, the electrons from the n type semiconductor material will move towards the p type semiconductor material. So there will be recombination of electrons and holes, so the current will starts flowing from the positive terminal of battery to the negative terminal of battery. This is how to conduct your p-n junction diode in forward bias condition. Now second picture shows the forward characteristics of the p-n junction diode. Now forward characteristics is the graph of forward voltage versus forward current, that is Vf versus If. Now when your diode is in forward bias condition, then you will get the forward characteristics in the first quadrant. Why in first quadrant? Because the voltage across the diode and current which is flowing through the diode will be positive, as diode is in forward bias condition. Now these characteristics shows the characteristics for the silicon diode. Now when you increase, now let's start from the point that is 0. Now when you increase your battery voltage, then the voltage across diode will increasing gradually. Current is also increasing, but which is slightly up to 0.7 volt. Now 0.7 volt is nothing but what? The barrier potential or the cut-in voltage for the p-n junction silicon p-n junction diode. Now when the voltage across the p-n junction diode, which is equals to 0.6 volt to 0.7 volt, then large current will flow through the diode, and that indicates your diode is in on state. And further increase in your applied battery voltage, then the voltage across the diode will remains constant, which is in between 0.6 volt to 0.7 volt, but only current will increase, and that indicates your diode is in on state. Now let's see the reverse biasing or reverse characteristics of the p-n junction diode. Now what is the difference between forward biasing and reverse biasing? In forward biasing, your anode is connected with positive terminal of battery and cathode is connected with negative terminal of battery. But in reverse bias, exactly opposite. The anode or p-type semiconductor material is connected with a negative terminal of battery, and cathode or n-type semiconductor material is connected with the positive terminal of battery. Means that indicates your diode will be in reverse bias condition. Means when you change the polarity of battery, that is negative to anode and positive to cathode, then your p-n junction diode will be in reverse bias condition. Now when you connect your diode in reverse bias condition and when you increase your battery voltage, then what will happen? The negative immobile ions which are present on p-type semiconductor material, means at the side of p-type semiconductor material, will increase. Similarly, the positive immobile ions which are present on n side, these ions also increase. Now due to this, what will happen? Width of depletion region will goes on increasing, because the negative charge ion which are present at on p side, that will not attract towards the negative terminal of battery. Similarly, the positive charge ion which are present on n side will not attract towards the positive terminal of battery, and this results into the width of depletion region will goes on increasing. Now let's see. So there will be no possibility of the current flowing in reverse bias condition of the p-n junction diode. Now let's see the reverse characteristics of the p-n junction diode. Now reverse characteristics is a graph of reverse voltage versus reverse current. Means it is a graph of reverse voltage, that is VR, versus reverse current, that is IR. Now when you increase the battery voltage, then what will happen? Reverse voltage will increase gradually. Means when your battery voltage equals to 20 volt, then your reverse voltage will be equals to minus 20 volt. But the current which is in will be in nanoampere, means which is nearly equals to what? 0. But when the voltage across the diode reach towards the breakdown voltage, that is Vz, then the large current will flow through the diode, and when this large current will flow through the diode, that indicates your diode damaged permanently. So we always operates our diode in forward bias condition only, but not in reverse bias condition. Now, which are the different applications of PN junction diode? First, you can use your PN junction diode for the rectification purpose. Then you can use your diode as a clipping circuit. Similarly, the clamping circuit or the voltage multiplier. In next lecture, we will see how to use our PN junction diode as an rectifier.